Okay, everybody. Today I want to talk about Taoist yoga, okay? Because there is a book that you can buy. It's the only book you'll find on Amazon. It's called Taoist Yoga, Alchemy and Immortality by Lu Kuan Yu. Charles Luck. And should buy that book, because this yoga style, lazy monkey yoga, is founded on from a philosophical point of view, I founded lazy monkey yoga on the Taoist philosophy. And hopefully you have a pretty general understanding about the philosophy of the Tao, or the philosophy of the way. You've read Alan Watts' What is Tao? You have read the Tao Te Ching. You've watched videos of people talking about Taoism, what it is, different kinds of Taoism. So obviously, in order to learn how to teach this physical discipline, you don't have to be a Taoist. You don't have to be anything, but you have to understand the philosophy of the Tao, of the gentle way, in order for you to understand the spirit in which we teach lazy monkey yoga. We practice Wu Wei, which is not forcing, okay? It's yielding. This is a yielding practice. It's passive, even in its most young form, its most active form, which is the lazy monkey yoga, yogic arts portion, okay, of the training. It's still an easy way. It's still very accessible to all people. It focuses on health and longevity practices primarily, rather than attainment of some kind of specific mental state that Hatha yoga, is trying to get people to. It doesn't require you to be a vegan. It's none of that. So Taoism and Buddhism, those two philosophies, is the core of lazy monkey yoga, period. Taoist yoga and Taoist alchemy could be synonymous with one another. So whenever you hear people talking about Taoism as far as a spiritual practice, you're going to hear a lot of people talk about Taoist alchemy rather than the word yoga. And there's something that we need to discuss about all of these yogas and these texts. We need to talk about gender. This is something that we need to talk about. We live in a world that is inherently misogynistic. We live in a very misogynistic world, and women have been treated like slaves and second-class citizens for a very long time. At what point in time we shifted from a matriarchal culture to a patriarchal culture is not clear. And also when God, or the divine, shifted from the image of the goddess, whether that's the earth or the sky goddess or space goddess. Hold on a second, I'm having nose problems this morning. Excuse me. Man, why can't I make one video without looking like a shit show? Whenever we flipped the switch on seeing the divine as feminine to seeing God as a patriarchal figure. That even happened in Japan. The Jade Emperor and the Yellow Emperor and this emperor and that emperor were set on these pedestals of being divine entities. We don't know when that happened. I have an idea, but it's not based in history. It's just based on my own crazy meanderings in my head. The teachings of yoga have been for men. A lot of yogic teachings have been for men. A lot of Taoist alchemy has been for men. It was systems created by men for men, to be studied by men and practiced by men. You know, the Hatha yoga practices, they were for like training teenage boys and young men in these austerities, okay? The Taoist alchemy has a lot to do with the male reproductive organs and reproductive force and semen retention, about not ejaculating during sex, and even, you know, different techniques in order to draw the creative forces up and in rather than out and during sexual pleasure and things. Those concepts, I don't want to say that they're outdated. Well, they kind of are. They kind of are, because there were women that practiced yoga, and there are women who have practiced alchemy throughout all of history. It's just that they didn't have the sacred texts that were written about their practices like men documented their practices. So when you read the Yoga Sutras, when you read Taoist Yoga, Alchemy, and Immortality, that particular text, and you read a lot of texts, it's going to be primarily focused towards men and alchemy as far as it is with men. Now, there are traditions, like in Buddhism, the Buddha did found a monastic lineage for women when he was alive. So there have been both male and female practitioners of Buddhism, and sanghas, communities, and monastics, both male and female, throughout that particular culture and history. There's a lot of equality in the teachings of Buddhism, and also across the entire Buddhist spectrum as far as practitioners are concerned. There is records of female Taoist alchemists that practice sexual alchemy for herself, like the White Tigress sect, things like that. But in general, what you're going to find is you're going to find a lot of texts that are geared towards men. One thing today is that if you go to Nathan Bryan's website, oh my gosh, what is it called? nathanbryan.com, Taoist Alchemy Online. I'm a member of that, and I paid to take those 2 courses in alchemy because he teaches Taoist alchemy according to his master, Wang Liping. And Wang Liping is a transmission holder and one of the last transmission holders of the Dragon Gate Taoist sect, which is a branch of the Complete Reality School that comes from China. So Nathan Bryan teaches Taoist alchemy to men and women. So it's regardless of gender, and things have changed. You know, what you have to remember about spirituality and religions is they change over time. They all do. The Christianity that was practiced in the 1st century, when Jesus, if he ever lived, opposed to the way it was practiced in medieval times, opposed to the way it was practiced in the Enlightenment period, as it's opposed today. And you see the variety of different kinds of Christians: Orthodox, Catholic, Protestant, fundamentalist. You see a very broad evangelical, you see a very broad spectrum of different kinds of Christians. They all say they're Christians, but they practice Christianity very, very differently. In Buddhism, what you'll find out later is Buddhism is just as diverse as Christianity is, as far as the way people practice it. There's the Theravadas, the Mahayanas, the Vajrayanas, and there's a whole scope of different practices that different sects of that particular, you know, all religions are a cult, came up with in order to find nirvana, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. I'll just leave it at that. Same thing in Taoism. There have been many, many different sects of Taoism over the past 5,000 years, because remember that Taoism is the indigenous religion of the people of China, founded with shamanism and animism and ancestor worship, and eventually evolved into what we know today as this very complete, holistic philosophy. It took a long time for these religions to get to where they're at. Thousands and thousands of years to become what they are today. And so it keeps evolving and evolving and evolving, and its spirituality evolves over time. It's not something that's set. So today, we take the best and we kind of set aside the worst, or let's say what is not helpful or is not skillful means, in order to practice these things, in order to, grow spiritually and get to where we need to go. So I just wanted to bring up the book Taoist Yoga and explain to you, if you buy Taoist Yoga, that is what you're going to get. You're going to get a lot of that. You're going to get a lot of language that is also mystical. A lot of these sacred texts, spiritual texts, are very mystical. They were written by initiates of cults, and in order to understand the mystery teachings of that particular cult, you had to find a master that could give you the interpretation of those mysteries. That's how it is in every mystery tradition. There's initiations, you become a member of the cult, you become a member of the religion, and then after you become a member, the master or the guru or whoever it is, the priest of that tradition, are the people that will train you to understand how to practice that tradition. And so a lot of Taoist texts, like The Secret of the Golden Flower, very, very beautiful text, highly, highly mystical, using a lot of metaphorical language. But if you're an American and you don't speak Chinese or you don't speak Sanskrit, and you read these texts that were translated from a foreign language into English, there is so much that is lost in the translations of sacred texts in other languages into English. It's not funny. The nuances of the language, we don't understand because we're not part of the culture. So it's very, very important for Americans that decide that they want to study yoga and embrace yoga as a spiritual path or a path of self-development, that you have to approach these philosophies and religions and practices with respect. Just like a white person who starts hanging out with black people who practice traditional African religions or some other kind of spiritualism. I don't care if it's hoodoo or Santeria or Ifa or Palo Mayombe or any of the traditions that come out of the Caribbean. If you are not born and raised in that culture, you have to approach that spirituality with the utmost respect for the people who are the lineage holders of that religion, that practice. And you follow the protocol. You go to a priest, you get a reading, you start hanging out with people that practice these things. Maybe you're invited to be part of their house or a part of their community. And then maybe at some point in time, you get initiated into that community, you receive those mysteries, or you start working with those deities, okay? Guess what? That works in every single religion. Every single religion that still has a priesthood that is actively practicing as priest for deities. I don't care if it's Brahmins or people that initiate people with the Shiva or the Kali, or even Buddhism, taking the vows in Buddhism to become a Buddhist. All of these things have to be respected. Now, about cultural appropriation. I want to bring this up. There's a lot of woke people out there today that are saying white people can't teach yoga because they've appropriated it from Eastern. They've appropriated Eastern religion. Look, my teacher is Master Adam Nugent, Vietnamese, Grand Master, martial artist, and Raja yoga teacher that inherited his martial arts and inherited his yoga through a lineage that practiced this for a very long time. He chose to teach this to people, and he chose to teach these practices to people who were not Vietnamese. He chose to teach these practices to anyone who wanted to learn them. He decided he wanted to certify yoga instructors in his yoga style. He has his own way of teaching yoga that highly influenced everything about the way I teach yoga, and my style is a mixture between his style and my style. That's where the more calisthenics stuff comes from. I trained under Master Adam. Master Adam taught me how to practice yoga, and I practice yoga the way my teacher taught me. I went with him and his family to Buddhist temple and sat and listened to Vietnamese Buddhist monks preach the Dharma of the Buddha in Vietnamese. I didn't even understand what they said, but I sat there and I meditated with them, and I listened to them chant, and I listened to the good message coming off the platform. I might not have understood it, but I understood the spirit of what they were saying. And I was present for that. So anybody who wants to come around and talk shit to me about, you're white, you're appropriating Asian culture, fuck them. And you can say the exact same thing. You can say the exact same thing. You can say, you know what? I was trained under Philip Deal, who was trained under Master Adam Nugent. This lineage, okay, this passing, this transmission of these kinds of yogic practices were passed from an authentic source to someone who studied under an authentic master that was part of the culture and has continued to teach that lineage. Because how is Master Adam's lineage going to continue unless I helped continue to spread the message, and then you continue to spread the message, you see? So all of that woke shit that you will find in our stupid, backward-ass American culture today, you can forget about all of that. You can forget about all of that. Because those opinions about how you practice yoga or how you approach spirituality or how you pray or how you meditate is none of their goddamn business. And I curse a lot. So the thing is like, people are like, oh my God, you're a yoga instructor and you curse. Of course I do. I don't get on some kind of soapbox and pretend to be something I'm not. We'll talk about that later. Never pretend to be something you're not. You know, don't get your yoga teacher certification and then suddenly become a guru, okay? You're not a guru. You're a yoga teacher that has 2 hours or 500 hours worth of yoga instruction that makes you competent and be able to lead people through a safe and effective yoga practice and teach people introductory meditation techniques for their health. And all of the religious stuff and all of the priestly stuff and all of the deep mysteries of Tantric Buddhism and Vedanta, leave that to the people that teach that, to the priests. Somebody comes to you and says, oh, I want to learn about meditation, give them tranquil sitting. Say, read tranquil sitting. It'll teach you the basics of sitting down and practicing Taoist meditation, which is what you should be doing. Read the Tao Te Ching. You'll understand the philosophy of the kind of practice I do. But every single person has a different practice, and every school has a different lineage. That's a traditional school, and my school, I consider it to be traditional because it's not new age. It's not following some other kind of philosophy. It's in harmony with an ancient philosophy that's been practiced for a very long time. Point people in the right direction of where they can study these things if they want to go deeply into the mystical practices. If you want to study the deep mystical practices, you can go to Nathan Bryan and learn how to practice Taoist alchemy. Or you can go to Swami down in New Jersey and go to his ashram and study Vedanta. That's not our job. That's not our place. Our place is to teach people yoga and to teach a good yoga class and it be safe and effective. And that is it. I'm not giving you authorization to do anything more than that. Okay? So you're going to learn how to teach yoga the way I teach yoga. I want you to mimic me. I want you to listen to the language I use. I want you to use the same language that I use when you're describing these things. And so I just wanted to tell you that, when you're looking at these sacred spiritual texts, you're looking at men who wrote down teachings for men. So if you're a woman, which is predominantly, 80% of the people that practice yoga in this country are women and teach yoga are women, just know that that's what you're dealing with. That's where those texts come from. That's the perspective. And you have to just sift through that in order to get the gems that come through the spiritual text. Okay. I'm probably going to have to splice this video into two because it's like a 20-minute long video and YouTube isn't going to like that very much. All right, so I will talk to you later.